KWT slaying.
What if the truth was never lost, only buried? For centuries, historians, scholars, and even colonial records have confirmed what many tried to silence. The original Israelites were a black people scattered across continents but never erased. Their skin was dark, their customs ancient, and their covenant with Yah eternal. This journey uncovers how the Spanish and Portuguese Jews, described as dark-skinned, Semitic, shared one bloodline. Chased by the Inquisition, many fled to Portugal, then beyond, preserving their heritage across borders. But the story doesn't end in Iberia. Across from West Africa, black Jews built synagogues, kept Torah, and passed down the laws of Moses. The Limba in southern Africa, the Igbo in Nigeria, the Beta Israel in Ethiopia, tribes across the continent boldly declared, "We are the children of Israel." These aren't isolated claims. These are voices rising from the dust, connected by oral histories, Torah traditions, and the unbroken rhythm of their identity. No such legacy exists among European Jews. No centuries of tribal witness, no matching traditions, no trace of ancient covenant keeping. Maps, art, and archaeology tell the same story. The Israelites were scattered, enslaved, and displaced, but never lost. The world always knew who they were. Their presence was visible, their customs alive, their story intact. This book doesn't speculate. It confirms the Israelites were black, bound by blood, culture, and covenant to the Most High. This is not just history, it's restoration. The truth was never destroyed, only buried beneath centuries of deception. Get your copy of They Always Knew We Were Israelites today, available now on Amazon.com.
Shabbat Shalom, family. Shabbat Shalom. How y'all doing today on this Sabbath? Minister Tayu, say hi to family.
Greetings, family. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, and I'd like to exhort you guys to give me a book review if you bought my book. I appreciate that.
So, fam, please go out there to Amazon and go give Minister Tayu's book a review. If you haven't given mine, give me one as well. So we're going to talk about a lot of things that's happening today. I've been saying for the last few shows that there's no time left. I believe that, whatever you take that to mean. But, I would say this, that we have to walk in that royalty and that identity of who we are in the Messiah, right? You need to know that you are royalty, that you are part of the house of the Most High. You are the chosen, right? And some people say, well, that doesn't matter anymore. It does matter, right? And they have a good habit of taking scripture out of context and trying to apply it to the church when in essence it was applied to the Israelites. But that's only for those who know who the people are and understand the scriptures from a covenant mindset, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on. And, like I've said in other videos, I don't know if Trump the Antichrist, but he is an Antichrist, but he's also a very dangerous man, right? And so we had the issue of birthright citizenship. And I've told you all from day one that we're the targets. We are the targets of the birthright citizenship decisions. We're also the target of the big, beautiful bill. And so, you know, a lot of you all don't understand what's in that bill. It's not just tax relief, right? It also gives them a lot more authority than they would have had, right? To persecute you. Now, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to get Minister Taylor to comment on it. We're going to look at what Justice Jackson said, right? Ketanji Jackson in her dissent concerning the birthright citizenship. Because I'm sure some of you all think, you know, hey, you know, he's blowing it out of water. It's not as bad as people think. No, because it is worse than what you think. And the reason why it's worse than what you think is because you think that it's not going to affect you because you're an American citizen. I'm a FBA. I'm a foundational Black American. I'm ADOS. No, you're the target. I've been telling you that from day one. So before I show this video, Mr. Taylor, any comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the Supreme Court gave Trump the ability to have an executive decision that has no limitations at all. He can do whatever he wants now and not get in trouble. That's what the Supreme Court has done for him. So it doesn't even matter anymore. He can go, he can create a narrative that you're an enemy of the state, right? And at that point, he can do whatever he wants. You're not protected by the Constitution, the 14th Amendment. It doesn't matter. He has that kind of power now. But go ahead, Minister Yacob.
All right, so we're going to go through this video and we're going to stop along the way and we'll look at some other things.
I think we lost. There he is. He's back.
Hold on. What happened is they changed my buttons, right? StreamYard went and changed my buttons, so I clicked the wrong thing. And so it kicked me out.
You mean you booted yourself?
Yeah, I booted myself. Don't be changing my buttons without letting me know ahead of time. I don't like that. Or let me go back to my default look. I don't like none of this, you know. Anyway, here we go.
2022. She took her seat on June 30th, 2022. So that's who she is. Let's get to her dissenting opinion. All right, again, it's about 8 to 9 pages. Discipline yourself, you all, and read this with me. You're going to see how serious her warning is for our nation. All right. So she says, I agree with every word of Justice Sotomayor's dissent. I write separately to emphasize a key conceptual point. The court's decision to permit the executive meaning the president, to violate the Constitution with respect to anyone who has not yet sued is an existential threat to the rule of law. That is so significant. She is saying here, by allowing Trump to do what is in violation of the United States Constitution is an existential, a currently, presently existing threat to the rule of law. And without the rule of law, we got a king. We have a dictator, an autocrat. All right, that's what she's saying. She goes on to say, it is important to recognize that the executive's bid to vanquish so-called universal injunctions is at bottom a request for this court's permission to engage in unlawful behavior. All right, so I'm not going to explain every sentence, but everything she says is so juicy, it's tempting. So what she's saying here is when Trump asked the court to stop judges from issuing universal injunctions, he was essentially asking them to allow him or to give him, grant him permission to engage in unlawful behavior. In other words, behavior that violates the Constitution. When the government says do not allow the lower courts to enjoin executive action universally as a remedy for unconstitutional conduct, what it is actually saying is that the executive wants to continue doing something that a court has determined violates the Constitution. Please allow this. That is some solicitation. With this ruling today, the majority largely grants the government's wish. But in my view, if this country is going to persist as a nation of laws and not of men, the judiciary has no choice but to deny it. Stated simply, what it means to have a system of government that is bounded by the law is that everyone is constrained by the law, no exceptions. And for that to actually happen, courts must have the power to order everyone, including the executive or the president, to follow the law, full stop. To conclude otherwise is to endorse the creation of a zone of lawlessness within which the executive has the prerogative to take or leave the law as it wishes, and where individuals who would otherwise be entitled to the law's protection become subject to the executive's whims instead. Let me explain that. She's saying that this decision allows Trump, at his whims and his prerogatives, to obey the laws that protect us or not obey the laws that protect us, including.
I'm going to pause it right there for a second. So, Minister, tell you, isn't this what we've been saying, right? A lot of people look at it, oh, you know, fear doctrine, fear doctrine. We've been telling y'all now, the Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Jackson, is saying the same thing that we've been saying. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, so they have given him the ability to nullify the Fifth Amendment and the 14th Amendment, the right to due process, which is what makes America so-called America, right? The land of freedom where you have the right to face your accuser. Now, if you don't have something before the court right now and Trump throws you out, you can't contest him. That gives him carte blanche power, absolute power, because he's going to grab you, put you out first. You can't open up a court case or a complaint before the court. You have no recourse. Okay. I mean, this is serious business. This is serious business. So I just want to add to that. I let you guys know Trump can't do this on his own. Right. And the fact that the Supreme Court is backing his play shows you this is bigger than Trump. This is bigger than Trump. There's a lot going on here.
So, I meant to tell you, you're telling me the Democratic Party is involved in this and the Republican
Democrat, Republican. Oh yeah. Look, this is that Freemasonic order, right? That's that powerful group that really runs the government behind the scenes. That's what's happening here. Trump is just doing what he has been told. And as my brother and I told you guys from 2015 on, once the awakening kicked in, that was going to set it off. 2019 came, that set it off. These guys are responding to the awakening, whether people want to believe it or not. And it's just going to get worse.
And one thing you're going to notice is that most people are not going to talk about this because they're scared, right? It's like when Hitler came to power, everybody shut up, right? Because they know that the Gestapo was going to come for them. I mean, that's a possibility for all of us. The bottom line is,
look, if you talk, is it going to stop him? No.
Yeah, it's not going to stop him.
You do better standing up for righteousness than to think he's going to look the other way because I don't see you cowering in the corner. No, he said, oh, I see you in the corner. I'm going to save you for last. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. He's going to save you for last because you quiet. But guess what? In the end, you're going to end up where everybody else is, whatever that may be, right? It may not be the whole happy-go-lucky stuff that you want to hear from your pastor, right? But we're in trouble. And if you don't see that, I feel sorry for you, but let's continue.
Deporting American citizens. Justice Sotomayor said in a previous opinion that anyone can be deported anywhere. There's no
What? Anybody could be deported anytime, anywhere, but I'm a citizen. I'm a citizen. That's what they want you to believe.
And that's the crazy thing, right? I mean, the whole American system was you get to face your accuser, have your day in court before the government's judges. And now that's null and void. Now I don't like you, I'll send you to Timbuktu. You'll be lucky to go to Timbuktu. I'm like, that's a blessing, tell you the truth. But El Salvador and Guantanamo, and you have no recourse. This is like criminal. This is really criminal. And to have the backing of the Supreme Court, it's serious business.
This is a final end time move is what is happening.
No exception to that under this case. Some folks say, well, we were born here. We are foundational Black Americans, so therefore we can't be deported. These folks don't understand the law who say that. Under this case, anyone, as Justice Sotomayor said, anyone can be deported anywhere under this particular ruling, which basically unleashes Trump. All right.
So y'all think we were exaggerating now? Does it give more credence to what we've been telling y'all over the last whatever, how many years? I mean, like I said,
many of them were witnesses of Yacoba saying what? They're
gonna push you out
before this started.
Y'all remember that, right? Give me a 1 if you remember that. I said they're gonna push you out. Give me a 2 if you don't. I'm just saying, but let's continue.
The majority cannot deny that our Constitution was designed to split the powers of a monarch between the governing branches to protect the people. Nor is it debatable that the role of the judiciary in our constitutional scheme is to ensure fidelity to law. But these core values are strangely absent from today's decision. Focusing on inept comparisons to impotent English tribunals, the majority ignores the judiciary's foundational duty to uphold the Constitution and laws of the United States. The majority's ruling thus not only diverges from first principles, it is also profoundly dangerous since it gives the executive the go-ahead to sometimes wield the kind of unchecked, arbitrary power the founders crafted our Constitution to eradicate. The very institution our founding charter charges with the duty to ensure universal adherence to the law now requires judges to shrug and turn their backs to intermittent lawlessness. With deep disillusionment, I dissent. Those are profound words. She goes on to say, to hear the majority tell it, this suit raises a mind-numbingly technical query. Are universal injunctions sufficiently analogous to the relief issued by the High Court of Chancery in England at the time of the adoption of the Constitution and the enactment of the original Judiciary Act to fall within the equitable authority Congress granted federal courts in the Judiciary Act of 1789? But that legalese is a smokescreen. It obscures a far more basic question of enormous legal and practical significance, which is, my addition, may a federal court in the United States of America order the executive to follow the law? So she's saying that the majority, Justice Barrett, went into deep history about English courts and the King of England and came out of that and said that there's no basis for universal injunctions. Justice Jackson says that is all a smokescreen. What this bottoms out to, as she said, may a federal court in the United States of America order the executive to follow the law? Can a federal court order Trump to follow the Constitution? She said that is the basis of this case. That's the question. Not all this other stuff about courts in England back 300, 400 years ago. But does federal courts today have the authority to say to the executive branch, stop it and follow the law? So she goes on to say, to ask this question is to answer it. In other words, the answer is obvious. In a constitutional republic such as ours, a federal court has the power to order the executive to follow the law, and it must. It is axiomatic that the Constitution of the United States and the statutes that the people's representatives have enacted govern in our system of government. Thus, everyone from the president on down is bound by law. By duty and nature, federal courts say what the law is if there is a genuine dispute, and require those who are subject to the law to conform their behavior to what the law requires. This is the essence of the rule of law. Do not take my word for it. Venerated figures in our nation's history have repeatedly emphasized that the essence of our free government is leave to live by no man's leave underneath the law, to be governed by those impersonal forces which we call law. In other words, we're all bound by the law. Our government is fashioned to fulfill this concept so far as humanly possible. That familiar adage is more than just mere rhetorical flourish. It is the rejection in positive terms of rule by fiat, whether by fiat of government or private power. Indeed, constitutionalism has one essential quality. It is a legal limitation on government. It is the antithesis of arbitrary rule. Its opposite is despotic government, the government of will instead of law. So she just simply said right there that we don't, as a nation, our government doesn't rule by fiat, by executive orders, by hunches and whatever they want to do, divorced from the rule of law. Is what she's trying.
So executive orders were never meant to be a law that can be passed and adhered to by, the government of the United States outside of the White House itself. Executive orders initially was for internal stuff within the White House, not for the rest of the nation, right? They then took it and they reinterpreted the meaning and the power behind an executive order to apply to basically the president becoming king. That was not the case, right? But that's how they do, right? They reinterpret things. And that's why if you don't understand that they're reinterpreting the Constitution, right? First, they're getting rid of birthright citizenship for immigrants, right? Saying that, hey, it was originally for descendants of slaves, which is true. But at the same time, the next reinterpretation is going to be you were never citizens to begin with. And when it says a person naturalized or whatever, right, shall be a U.S. citizen, they weren't talking about Negroes. And Negroes were considered to be what? 3/5 of a person. That's where they're going with it. And if you can't see it, guess what? You're going to find out real quick. Any comment meant to tell you before I continue?
Yeah, so the whole time we kept seeing every president before Trump getting a little more power using the executive order, right? The executive order was for like appointing officials, managing agencies, federal agencies, right? Enforcing new policies that Congress had set and dealing with emergency situations, right? And what I heard even when I was a kid that, they would executive orders. You could give an executive order to reorganize a department, remodel the White House, things like that. Not this God power that basically usurps Congress, right? But they have done this over the years, right? Giving more and more power to this executive order it was never meant to be. So as you can see, if you look at how things are played out, this is not a Trump move. This is a cabal move. That's what I like to call them, the cabal.
So I'm going to tell you about that cabal, right? That's the Freemasons and all that stuff. You want to comment on that right quick about that family hierarchy, or do you want me to continue with the video?
Yeah, you could continue. I mean, that goes deep, right? There's families involved in this thing that's before the Vatican, right? And y'all, what is it, the Moravians? Y'all heard of them? The Priusors. I mean, there's some families that really run things, and they're older than the Vatican, and no one knows about these people. And the names change, but the legacy of that family still exists. So, the satanic family, let's call it that.
Oh yeah, people don't understand how the world really works.
In her best distress. She goes on to say, those who birthed our nation limited the power of government to preserve freedom. As they knew all too well, constant experience shows us that every man invested with power is apt to abuse it and to carry his authority as far as it will go. But the founders reasoned that the vice of human ambition could be channeled to prevent the country from devolving into despotism. Ambition could be made to counteract ambition. If there were, say, a constitution that divided power across institutions in such a manner as that each may be a check on the other, then it could be possible to establish government by and for the people, and thus stave off autocracy. She knows exactly what is facing us if they got this wrong, and they got it wrong. Through such separated institutions, power checks power. Our system of institutional checks thus exists for a reason, so that the private interests of every individual may be a sentinel over the public right, may be a sentinel over the public rights. All right, then she goes on to say, the distribution of power between the judiciary and the executive is of particular importance to the operation of a society governed by the law, made up of.
So before we continue, I want to make sure you understand what he said about autocracy, because most people don't know what an autocracy is. Autocracy is a system of government in which one person holds what? Absolute power, right? That's what we're dealing with, right? That individual makes decisions without needing approval from a parliament, court, or other governing body. Authority in an autocracy isn't limited by laws or a constitution. The ruler's word becomes law. Examples include absolute monarchies and dictatorships where leaders can enact or change policies at will. Autocracies often limit political freedoms and suppress opposition to maintain control. So that's why there was this video where Trump was caught on hot mic, and he was saying, yeah, I admire Putin, and I admire what's the leader of North Korea, Mr. Taylor?
I can't even think.
Kim Jong.
Right now. No. Kim Jong-un. There you go.
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un.
He said, I admire Kim Jong-un. Why? Because when they speak, people listen. And he said, that's what I want my people to do. When I speak, I want my people to listen right away. When I speak, they do it. That's telling you he wants to be a dictator. He's an autocrat.
Free, impartial, and independent judges and justices. The judiciary checks the political branches of government by explaining what the law is and securing obedience. The federal courts were thus established not only to decide upon the controverted rights of the citizens as against each other, but also upon rights and controversy between them and the government. Quite unlike a rule of kings governing system and a rule of law regime, nearly every act of government may be challenged by an appeal to law. In this country, the executive does not stand above or outside of the law. Consequently, when courts are called upon to adjudicate the lawfulness of the actions of the other branches of the government, the judiciary plays an essential part of the democratic process.
All right, I'm going to leave it right there because I think you all understand that those days are over. the protections of constitutional rights are over, right? And as you can see with the Congress allowing him to get away with the stuff that he's getting away with, they're on board. Now, all of these people have something in common, right? A lot of these people are billionaires, multimillionaires, but they're also more than likely members of the Bohemian Grove, right? This is a takeover by the Freemasonic order, right? Businessmen, elite, politicians, globalists, think tanks. This is a coup d'etat, and this is a fancy coup d'etat. It's not your typical coup d'etat like you see in Africa, right? America has been taken over. And most people, because of normalcy bias, do not understand, neither will they open their minds to understand that we have been taken over. Any comments, Mr. Tate?
Well, I mean, it's easy for them to do it this way, right? I mean, through judicial means. But the reality is this is a cabal move, right? They don't need military because all they need to do is if you acknowledge them as authority, all they need to do is change policy, and you have to fall in line with policy. Now, we've seen how the law is fluid when it comes to these people, because we've seen where they delete our people and we say, surely this guy is going to prison for life, and he goes home to have dinner with his family and he gets off. And we see this over and over again, right? So we can see, no matter whether or not it's written in black and white, because the law most of the time is on our side, our people lose, right? Which shows you the law is subjective. And that's where what we're seeing today, how Trump can now all of a sudden usurp the role of Congress. So interesting times.
Definitely interesting. And that's why it's, I think most people, even like during the time of World War II, got caught up in this whole Nazi thing because they couldn't accept what was in their face, right? They saw it coming just like we're seeing it, but most of y'all can't accept it. Why? Because all you know is the rule of law. And the Constitution was always parroted as the highest law of the land, which nobody can usurp and have to abide by. That's gone. Because
we were victims of conditioning, right? When they trained us about the law and how, the Constitution takes 3/5 to change it, so no one can touch it. And obviously we can see they backdoored that, right? They didn't have to pass a vote to give Trump power. They just redefined things. Interesting.
And he who has the sword makes the rule, right? He who has the pew-pews tell you what to do. That's why, like, when the police pull people over and you see them, you see people saying, well, you don't have the right to ask me for my ID because you didn't say you suspected me of a crime. So you can't see my ID until you suspect me of a crime. And guess what? You know what the cops do? They beat you on the head and put handcuffs on you and bring your butt to jail. They don't care what the law is. That's what's happening right now, if y'all don't get it, right? So let's continue.
The police force and ICE that was just infused with $170 billion, a la the big, beautiful budget bill of bullshit yesterday. The Supreme Court last year ruled that the President of the United States cannot be held accountable or liable criminally for official acts. And that very same Supreme Court earlier this year just basically put an end to federal judges being able to enact nationwide injunctions on unlawful executive orders. I'm being so fucking dead ass when I say this, bro. We are in grave danger. Oh my God, y'all don't even understand how bad this shit could get. I've made several videos stating what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna do it every day until y'all get the message. You got two choices: lock and load, or get the fuck out of here. Let me say that one more time: lock and load, or get the fuck out of here, bro. Just leave. Do it now while shit is still calm, while the borders are still open. And that go for everybody, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever the case might be, because the shit that's finna touch down in 3 or 4 months, oh my God. I saw a video on here that basically said that Trump and the administration were able to convince some of the hesitant Republican lawmakers to sign yes on the big, beautiful budget bill because he gave them a sneak preview of what was to come as far as executive orders. You better run, don't walk, run to your nearest gun store. Get you everything you need. Buy all the ammunition you need. I'm trying to tell y'all, man. And if you're an immigrant, or your daddy is an immigrant, or your mama's an immigrant, or you look like you fit the description, I would seriously consider getting the fuck out now. Because they're already making the concentration camps and they're calling it Alligator Alcatraz. And trust me when I say they will not just stop with Latinos or Hispanic people. They're just the easiest target right now. You African with a funny sounding name, they're going to find a way to put you in that motherfucker too. You Asian, don't think you safe just because you're the model minority. Oh, no, they're going to lock your ass up too. If you alphabet gang, don't let them people catch you lacking, bro, because they're going to put belt to ass. And to all my black people out there watching this, they're going to do us the worst. They getting all these people up out the way, right? Because it's easy. But when they get done with them, oh, trust me, they gonna do us dirty. I'm trying to tell y'all. So be prepared. Lock and load or get the fuck out now. And to any black people that might still be watching it, listen, I know we've been on the sidelines watching and waiting and letting these dummies that elected this fool feel the consequences of their actions. But it's gonna be time for us to jump off the porch. Not right now, but soon. So be prepared.
So I hope y'all understood what he was saying. It's dire, right? And it's amazing to me, the Israelites that still parrot, we're not gonna have to flee. We're not gonna have to flee. What you think of that, Mr. Taylor?
Well, I see a brother say this dude is delusional. Where you gonna go? That's up to you. He just told you to leave. You decide whether or not you're gonna listen. All right.
Here's the bottom line. If a flood comes, like what happened in Texas, and it destroys your house, what you gonna do? You're gonna stay there or you're gonna leave? If a fire comes and burn down your whole neighborhood, what you gonna do? The stupid thing and stay? Oh, well, this is my house. I'm not going nowhere. You gonna stay or are you gonna leave? Look, if the military come marching down the street in your neighborhood and start oppressing everybody in there and tell you got to have a wearable badge or a wearable, let's say the mark of the beast, what you gonna do? Some of y'all gonna take that mark. I know you are, right? It's the same ones who like to eat a lollipop. I'm just saying, because you don't have no fortitude, you don't know the scriptures, you don't have no understanding that they hate you with a passion, that you never was an American, you was always a ninja. Minister Taylor.
Yeah, I'll just tell y'all a story. During Katrina, I was just waiting, right? I'm like, let me see what the news say. This thing gonna turn. And I didn't think I was waiting too long. I'm waiting. And my wife like, man, we better get out of here. I'm like, we gonna go. Let's just see if it's gonna turn, right? And I waited real late, and then I'm like, okay, it's time to go. Now, the good thing is, with the contraflow and everything, we were able to just go straight out through no blockage. Why? Because everybody else was already gone, right? But I learned my lesson that, I should have just left early to be on the safe side, right? And as you know what happened during Katrina, I mean, we lost our house. We lost everything. But, the Most High took care of us in the midst of all that. He provided. He really provided. I didn't miss a beat, even though I lost my home. I lost one of my cars. But my kids were provided for. Everything was provided for. That's how the Most High rolled. And it wasn't off the back of the government. So how you like that? All right.
So, a lot of people say, hey, flee doctrine. We're not going to flee. Where we going to go? My question to you is, where you going to stay? That's my question. Hashtag ain't no 400 years. Because when you look at what's happening, you ought to be, let's say, savvy enough to see that this thing is going to be knocking on your door at some point. Now, if you're delusional enough to think that it's just going to affect the immigrants, you're insane. You're literally insane if you think it's just going to affect the immigrants. As that brother said in the video, they're just the low-hanging fruit. They're the easy targets. They're the ones that they're using to remove the blocks of protection of the Constitution. As a matter of fact, I hope you know at this point the Constitution is null and void. Give me a 1 if you understand the Constitution is null and void. Give me a 2 if you don't think it's null and void. Give me a 3 if you don't know. Because it's a bit obvious. This is a land of lawlessness.
It's not safe, and it never was. Hey, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm a visiting scholar at the University of Southern Denmark. I'm still a lecturer at Johns Hopkins, and I'm the author of The Forthcoming A Resistance History of the United States. Last weekend, I saw a lot of people breathing a little easier after the Supreme Court's ruling on nationwide injunctions on Friday. Lawyers, commentators, they rushed to clarify. This was procedural, they said. It didn't touch the merits of birthright citizenship, so don't panic. And they're right, technically. But the court's move, precisely because it didn't settle the substantive question, is telling. This court knows exactly how to leave the door open, especially when it wants a few more lower court rulings to line up with the outcome it and this regime prefers. This was not restraint, it was staging. So yeah, the ruling doesn't overturn the 14th Amendment, of course not, but it cleared a path for a more targeted and more comprehensive challenge designed to chip away at it from below before they deliver the major blow after they come back in October. This regime has already promised to walk that path. They're telling us plainly that birthright citizenship is absolutely on the table. But what's frustrating to me, got to get to that, is the number of people that still cling to the idea that the Constitution's language, especially the 14th Amendment, is somehow, what, self-executing? That it has to mean what it looks like it means to you. But that's not how this works, folks. That's never been how this works. The modern understanding of the 14th Amendment, equal protection, birthright, citizenship, due process, is just that. It's modern. For decades after its ratification, the courts twisted and narrowed its meaning, even when the people who wrote it were still alive, telling them, no, it didn't mean that. The court said something else. The 14th Amendment that says anyone born in the United States is a citizen was used to exclude Chinese immigrants, sidestep indigenous authority, and rationalize racial segregation. Yeah, Wong Kim Ark, 1898, 30 years after the 14th Amendment was passed, it did uphold birthright citizenship 30 years later. But even that was a bitterly contested decision, and it was bitterly contested for Wong Kim Ark, who got arrested a couple of decades later. It didn't mean much in practice until the 1920s, and it wasn't until the 1950s and 1960s that courts began to build anything like the modern rights framework people now think of as settled. That's less than a lifetime ago for a lot of people. So it's not any kind of constitutional bedrock. That's not how the US Constitution works. It's precedent. And as we know now, and as this court has made a pro sport out of, precedent can just be reversed. Meh. And if you want to understand how fragile even the idea of birthright citizenship has always been, especially for Black Americans, read my once and future colleague Martha Jones' Birthright Citizens. It's the definitive account of how free Black people in antebellum Baltimore fought for the rights that most white Americans still think were settled by statute or by amendment. They weren't. They had to be claimed and defended and redefined long before the 14th Amendment ever existed. And that fight isn't over. And the court knows that. And they're happy to open up a new front. In fact, they're counting on the public not knowing that. They'll claim, because they're laying this groundwork, they'll claim they're restoring the Constitution's original meaning. They'll quote early 19th century opinions. They'll reach back to, of course, the founders who made sharp distinctions between citizens, white, male, property-owning patriots, and inhabitants. Everyone else. This is very clear in the founding documents. This is very clear in the work of David Ramsey. This is very clear in the first citizenship laws passed by the First Federal Congress. Stephen Miller has already deployed that exact logic. True citizenship belongs only to those who inherited it through the revolution or earned it by naturalization, which was, for most of U.S. history, established by those patriots in the First Federal Congress, limited to free white persons, explicitly excluding Black people and Indigenous people from citizenship forever. That long road is a different story, which leads us to the 14th Amendment being necessary in the first place. And no, this isn't just about Stephen Miller or this court. The real danger is the Constitution, is the structure. The Constitution, Article 3, gives the court no real guardrails. It doesn't define what rights mean. It doesn't force anyone to interpret it in good faith or give any kind of guidance about that. It leaves all of that up to the people in charge. American governance is just a risky trust exercise. And so when the people change, so does the meaning of the Constitution. We learned that with Dobbs 3 years ago. We saw what happens when an entire generation assumes precedent will hold and then it doesn't, no matter what the nominees to that court say in front of confirmation hearings. The same thing's happening now. Birthright citizenship is not guaranteed by some constitutional magic. It's guaranteed by 5 justices and 1 more challenge. The Constitution has never protected the people. It has always served the priorities of those interpreting it. So don't be reassured by procedural rulings. Be alarmed by what they make possible and stop pretending the Constitution can't go sideways. It already has, many times before. If we want to resist what's coming, here's a resistance dispatch of the day. We have to start by telling the truth about the system we're in, because the words on the page don't protect anyone. The people in power do, or they don't. And right now, they don't. And tomorrow's not looking too good either.
So the laws, Constitution being the law, the highest supposedly law of the land, the laws in particular was always a facade. And this is what I learned when I was in law school, right? Was that the law is BS. I would read these cases. I would study the case law, look at the prior decisions, look at what the statutes say. And then you find out they come up with a whole different ruling in the end. It'd be like, how did you come to that conclusion based upon what the law clearly says? And, back then, I was new. I was young to this. And then I said, oh, I get it. You ignored the law. Mr. I am the law. They ignored the law, right? And so you got to understand, this whole system is a fraud. The law is really for us. The law is for the common man to keep us in line. It is not for the elite. It is not for the billionaires. It is not for the politicians. They usurp the law because they interpret the law. Minister, tell you.
As the guy said, it's an experiment. It's a trust exercise or a trust experiment. Whether or not the people are going to trust the leadership and trust that the law works. And really what you're trusting is the propaganda that you've been sold. Like, as the guy said, it's not some kind of magic that makes this untouchable, right? So this is what I realized with Christians and a lot of our Israelite people, right? Especially people who say stuff like the mark of the beast with a slave tattoo, right? Is that they love Babylon. They won't admit it. They trust Babylon. And she is their provider, right? Instead of the Most High. And this is why a lot of people out there, a lot of y'all out there don't like Tell You Ministries, because we tell y'all the truth and sometimes the truth hurt. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a battle that started in the heavens. We're dealing with a battle between the Most High and Satan and his minion. And this is what y'all done forgot. Y'all forgot We in the midst of a heavenly war, but y'all just don't know how it manifests. Well, guess what? You're starting to see how it manifests. And if you don't rely on the Most High in this hour, you're finished. All right. This is his battle. You got to just say, Father, tell me what to do. I'm on board. I don't care. Just tell me. I'm with you. I roll like that. That's what you got to do. You can't be up here standing around saying, well, Babylon going to be nice to me because she has the Constitution and they're not going to violate the law. How you think they built this nation? Off of your blood. Look at the history of what they've done to us. Lynching was just the beginning. Y'all done forgot. Y'all done forgot what we dealing with here. It ain't just lynching. It ain't just pew-pews in the street. They got a rap sheet that's worse than I've ever seen in the history of the world. Minister Yacob.
Well said, Minister Tell. And one other thing is, and you know, like Minister Tell says, some of y'all don't want to hear the truth because the truth hurts, right? The truth removes your fantasy world, right? That you grew up in called America, home of the free and the brave. You bought the lie, right? And so some of y'all get upset because you got plans. You want to build a big church, a big ministry. You want to build a big business. You got all of this stuff, all this money, all these cars, all these houses, and they're going to take it away from you. Understand this. Your lives are at stake, and your family's lives are at stake, and your children's lives are at stake. I know you don't want to hear it. I know you don't want to hear it, but like I said on my Facebook wall, this is the end of the warnings. This is the end of the warnings. This is the time of repentance only, right? There's no more warnings coming. This is it. I'm telling you, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to. I don't care if you believe me or not. This is the time of repentance. That's all you got. There's no more warnings, no more time to say, wake up, get your house in order, repent. You know, believe the Most High, believe in Yeshua, obey the gospel, obey the laws. Ain't no more warnings. I'm telling you, you don't have to believe me. I've been right so far.
Minister Yacob, we only 6 months in of his first year. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine? We only 6 months. It feels like 6 years.
Yeah.
We only 6 months into his leadership, and all of this has happened. Come on, y'all can't see what's happening here. As Minister Yacob said, it's over. I mean, the pleading for y'all to understand, those on the, those on the Lord's side, get over here. That's how this is. Take a side, and you're gonna fall on that side. Whatever happens to that side, that's where you at. I'm rolling with the Most High. I'm rolling with Yahushua. Period.
So let's look at some more stuff because y'all need to understand where we're at and what's happening.
Barack Obama drops more hints. It's becoming abundantly clear now that the Democrats are signaling that something is coming, that they are going to take a stand and not just sit by and watch things happen without doing something. Yesterday, former President Barack Obama gave a speech at the Obama Foundation Democracy Forum. Listen to this and make sure to be careful about what he says. He is the best at doing this, but he was very careful at what he was saying during this part of his speech. He is signaling that something is coming that's going to be significant and that is going to require all Americans to come together to stand up for what is right, for what is just, and for the truth. It's something so significant that it's going to require us to reach out to our opponents on the other side of the aisle and garner their support, which they should support. If they still stand up for right and wrong, which he's suggesting they do, then they will support what's coming. Between what Kamala has said lately, Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, and now Barack Obama, they are trying to subtly prepare everyone for what may be coming.
in this moment in
Yes.
which we are currently living,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, it feels as though the people who are speaking up and trying to change our society are not, in fact, being heard, and that change is coming not from outside the system, as you suggest, but rather from within the system.
Oh, well,
And I wonder
you
if
were asking me about what it felt like for me coming up.
Oh, well, I
You
did
didn't
ask.
ask me about what the heck is
I
going
did-
on right now. Now that's a whole nother.
No. I did
That's a
have.
whole nother kettle of fish.
I did have. How is this changed now that you're out of office?
During my presidency, I didn't hear the out of office thing. It's changed a lot in the last few years. Yeah.
Well, but the I agree with you actually,
Yeah.
but the premise that the way you create change in a democracy comes from below and not from above, I continue to think is solid. Are you rethinking that?
No, I'm not rethinking at all. But what we're also witnessing is that when the system is captured by those who, let's say, have a weak attachment to democracy, are not, I don't even think that's a controversial statement at this point. No, I'm actually being serious now. It was a controversial statement. Now it is self-acknowledged. I mean, if you follow regularly what is said by those who are in charge of the federal government right now, there is a weak commitment to what we understood, and not just my generation, at least since World War II, our understanding of how a liberal democracy is supposed to work. And when I say liberal, I don't mean left. I mean liberal in the sense of believing in rule of law and independent judiciary and freedom of the press and freedom of assembly and protest and compromise and pluralism. All those institutional norms and laws that were embodied in the Constitution imperfectly and then over time were expanded so that we had a basic understanding of, like, I can't just be picked up on the street and hauled off to another country. That wasn't a partisan view. That wasn't a Republican or Democratic notion that shouldn't happen. That was an American value and norm. And so what I believe it continues to be that there has to be responses and pushback from civil society, from various institutions and individuals outside of government, but there also has to be people in government in both parties who say, well, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And when what we're seeing right now is when you do not have those constraints and guardrails, right? When you don't have people inside of government who say, no, this is how the law works and we should follow it. Democracy is not self-executing. It requires people, judges, and people in the Justice Department, and people throughout the government who take an oath to uphold the Constitution. It requires them to take that oath seriously. And when that isn't happening, we start drifting into something that is not consistent with American democracy. It is consistent with autocracies. It's consistent with Hungary under Orban. It's consistent with places that hold elections but do not otherwise observe what we think of as a fair system in which everybody's voice matters and people have a seat at the table and there are checks and balances and nobody's above the law. And we're not there yet completely, but I think that we are dangerously close to normalizing behavior like that. And we need people both outside government and inside of government saying, let's not go over that cliff.
So what do you think of that, Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Smooth Talker, right? You know, he's always been part of the cabal. He's gone along with it. You know, he's playing the left-right paradigm. You could ignore what the heck he's talking about. I mean, he's part of it. I mean, just like the rest of them, it's a psyop against the populace, and most people aren't understanding that. Right? These things are well planned ahead, pre-organized. It's just greater than you think. All right.
Can you say scripted, Minister Taylor?
Scripted is a good word. There you go. I like that word. Scripted.
So I want to read this because, you know, I read this before, but, you know, this is what I think is going on. This is from the 1871 letter attributed to Albert Pike. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of what? Absolute atheism, origin of savagery and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization. And the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This is what we're dealing with, right? This social cataclysm. All of this is by design to collapse the system and to bring in what they call the Great Reset or the New World Order. And that's why they called it ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. And that's why we have all this chaos. And so based upon what you're hearing Obama say, right, you can hear, right, the rumors of a civil war. That's what you hear, the rumors of a civil war. And that is what they want. And that is what's going to happen. And just like, you know, with what we're seeing, you know, with all the immigration stuff, and now they're going after the Haitians. Look, the Haitians ain't going to be dealing with all that stuff like the immigrants, right? But let's continue because, you know, y'all need to understand what's going on, right? That, you know, no matter how much you hide your head in the sand and, you know, you go to your conferences and, you know, you deny the fact that we're going to have to flee. You could keep denying it, right? But you're going to have to deal with it one day soon.
Let me add,
Pretty funny. Well,
here's a problem.
Okay, go ahead.
Here's a problem that we all have to some degree. All right. You haven't purposed in your heart that you're going to cut off Babylon.
and all the illegals, they still think we're stuck with them.
Can you pause that?
It started playing.
It's pretty funny.
Okay. So what I'm saying is we all, to some degree, have been addicted to the comforts of Babylon, right? And most of us, a lot of us think
all the illegals, they still
They
think we're
keep
stuck
playing.
with them.
Hold on.
It's pretty funny.
maybe the.
I'm gonna try to get on the other. Let me remove it out of the thing. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just saying we all have an addiction to Babylon, and we've become accustomed to it, and it's expected. We have an expectation, right? Being able to go to the grocery store and get exactly what we want comfortably, right? Not having to labor in the field anymore. Air conditioned car, air conditioned home, sweet drinks that give you diabetes, right? We sort of accustomed to that, going to the coffee shop, and most of us don't want to give this up for the Most High. And you make excuses when you don't even want to acknowledge that this nation has been warring against your God. You won't even admit it. Why? Because you love Babylon. And we all, to some degree, have to be prepared to divest ourselves from everything that Babylon has given us. This is where we are. We need to be ready to walk wherever the Most High say go, right? Don't be crying in the wilderness because you ain't had no meat for a while, right? You just got to be ready. This time we're not going to fail in the wilderness. We're going to pass the test.
That's it. We're going to pass the test. All right, so let's listen to this.
Funny. Well, I think it's funny, at least. All the illegals, they still think we're stuck with them. No. You're about to be stuck in here with us. Clock is ticking. Could be a soft tick, could be a loud one. Hard to say. A word of advice, though, I'd scram if I were you. Skedaddle. Vamoose, leave while you still can. Alligator Alcatraz is just the beginning. Next up is Shark Shawshank. Sharks, very dangerous, not the most reasonable of beasts. Some of you have seen the Discovery Channel and know what I'm talking about. Shark Week, very exciting. We'll live stream escape attempts, justice and economic stimulus in one. Rikers with grizzly bears is an option as well. We could use a snappier name, but the concept is strong to very strong in a big way, quite frankly.
Did y'all hear him say he gonna stream escape attempt? Did y'all hear that? But y'all not gonna have to flee. He said you better leave while you can before you can't leave, and you going to alligator Alcatraz. Now, let me tell you something else that I'm sure y'all not getting. Because they playing with y'all. You know that, right? Who did I say they after, family? Who did I say they after? Who's the true target? Tell me who the true target is. If that's AI, they fooled me. It don't look like AI to me. Us, yes. We are. We're the target. Yasharal, Ezra Alawi, we the target. Yes. Now, think of this for a second. You're dealing with alligators. Do y'all remember alligator bait? I'm telling you, they're telling you who's going in there next. That's why it's alligator Alcatraz. It's a hint to you,
Alligator
Israelites.
bait 2.0.
Yep. Alligator bait 2.0. That's what he's telling y'all. You better leave while you can. Y'all think he just talking to the immigrants? You better leave while you can. Did they not tell you that the fact that you FBA don't matter? Did not Katanji warn y'all that it don't matter? You better leave while you can, alligator bait. I'm just saying. It's not going over my head. I get it. Well, Yacoba, what you gonna do? How you gonna leave? Look, all I'm saying is be prepared. That's all I kept telling y'all for months, for years. Be prepared.
Now, here's the interesting thing, right? So they start with the immigrants and they claim that they committed a crime by coming here illegally. And so therefore, because you're a criminal, I need to put you in a prison that, that's designed to be a prison, uncomfortable. But now he's dealing with naturalized citizens. He's dealing with people who are, descendants of slaves that he will end up putting in these same places. So now what's your excuse? They're not illegal. You just redefining the law. So you're going to hold them in a prison instead of making their exit comfortable. If all you want to do is get people out of the country, why you got to treat them like less than human and they didn't commit a crime, right? You see what I'm saying? This is just going to end up being, y'all could be slaves. Y'all could go work in them fields because We got some jobs out there that the illegals used to do. So now we need some workers. Y'all Negroes want to go work in them fields? You want to work in them fields, we'll let you stay. Nah.
Hundreds of migrants are expected at Alligator Alcatraz Detention Center. This happened. This is happening
thank
today.
You. The migrant detention center deep in the Everglades is nearing full operation. It's been a busy day outside the so-called Alligator Alcatraz. Local 10's Christina Vasquez is live near Ochopee with what we've just learned. Christina.
30 million? Yeah, I know.
New
lot,
at this hour and within the hour, Florida's Attorney General taking to the platform X to say at this very remote detention and deportation facility, hundreds of undocumented individuals are expected to be checking in later tonight.
Checking in.
State officials say Alligator Alcatraz, a hastily assembled temporary detention facility of tents and trailers along an aging airstrip in the Everglades, is up and running. And also, at one point, leaking following Tuesday's heavy afternoon rainstorm. A spokesperson with the Florida Division of Emergency Management describing the water intrusion of some structures as minimal, telling Local 10 News vendors tightened base seams overnight to mitigate against it happening again. During much of Wednesday morning, pickup trucks.
That's not the migrants, right? No, I was about
water
to say.
tanks and fencing material into the remote facility.
It's
which the
crazy they
governor
built
has
that
said
shit
would
in
help
8
the president's
days.
mission to detain and deport. Flights are expected to take off right from this tarmac and becoming an attraction.
I figured I'd just stop by and see if I can get some pictures of this place. We do need to get all the criminals out.
Critics raised.
Bro. Yep, that's right. I bet that. Yep, for sure.
Criminals out.
Critics raised a series of concerns to include cultural and environmental.
8 million Floridians rely on the Everglades for their drinking water. Don't have answers to how they're managing things like waste and, runoff and light pollution and noise pollution. I'm concerned about the billions of dollars taxpayers have invested into Everglades restoration.
We are also learning more about how much you, the taxpayer, are paying for the facility. The Department of Homeland Security tells Local 10 News it will cost Florida approximately $450 million a year.
That's it? That's pretty good.
Which will largely be funded by FEMA's Shelter and Services Program.
That's good.
DHS
Perfect.
also tells us that Florida is using
All
both
right.
FEMA trailers that now belong to the state, renovated
So they're just taking over all the FEMA stuff and they're putting the illegal. Damn.
trailers that have been used in
That's
previous
nothing,
disasters
yeah.
will now house workers at the facility.
Less than the Ukraine war. Yep.
And back here live with this live look where I can tell you those digital signs you are seeing right now, those
ID
are new,
required.
also within about an hour. And once again, it's Florida's Attorney General who is posting on social media that it is expected that the first round of detainees will be arriving at some point later tonight. And the next thing he wrote is that for these detainees, the next stop, back to where they came from. Reporting live for you, I'm Christina Bass.
It might not be back to.
So remember, Trump said he's going to stream their escape attempts. Now, that sort of tells me they're going to be in there for an awful long time. They're not just sending these people home, They're going to be there for quite a long time if he stated they're going to be streaming escape attempts. This is a concentration camp. This is a prison. And some of y'all like, I'm not going to flee. Where am I going to go? If you don't flee, you're going to be in that concentration camp.
Well, they're going to push you out, but you're going to do 6 months in that concentration camp first.
Yep.
So I would say this, Brother Karras, we need Q2UA to be negotiating deals for us on the continent, right? We need to have some contracts, agreements signed where we can have some opportunities to go over there without obstacles. We need some negotiators, period.
That is what we need.
We're going to do something that we're going to sort of put the farmers in charge. And if a farmer's been with one of these people that work so hard, they bend over all day. We don't have too many people can do that. but they work very hard and they know them very well. And some of the farmers are literally, they cry when they see this happen. If a farmer is willing to vouch for these people in some way, Christy, I think we're going to have to just say that's going to be good, right? We're going to be good with it, because we don't want to do it where we take all of the workers off the farms. We want the farms to do great like they're doing right now.
So the farmers got to vouch for the immigrants, and then the immigrants can work on the farm. Can we say slavery? Did I not say they're going into captivity? Did I lie? The scripture says those who persecuted us going into captivity, right? Do you know a lot of those people are descendants of the Portuguese and the Spanish? The ones who kicked off the transatlantic slave trade, the Inquisition. Did he not just say that they're going to be under a slave master, Mr. Tayu?
Absolutely.
So let's continue. Does this even make any sense? If it's all about deportation, why they got to hold these people in there for processing and all this stuff and making their lives difficult? They sleeping on cement floors with like some silver cover or whatever they call that thing, right? No place to take a dump, no water, or they sharing toilets.
Exactly. Why treat them inhumane? Right? There's no need. You want them out, let them gracefully leave, but you want to make it uncomfortable.
The devil shall put some of you in prison for 10 days. I'm just saying, y'all living in the fantasy world if you think everything going back to normal. It's not. I mean, haven't you woken up yet? You still living in a fantasy world if you think you're not going to have to flee. America is over. The Constitution is over. Protections are over. Middle class is over. We have been usurped by oligarchs. This is why, like I told you, right? You have the billionaires that have become lieutenant colonels in the military. Make it make sense. Is y'all dense? I'm like, look, right now, what you're dealing with is a coup d'etat. I'm like, if you don't see that, I'm sorry for you, Mr. T.
I just wanted to add, to our immigrant people out there, Haitians and Hispanics, and you guys think that we're standing down because, it's not our fight. Well, it isn't our fight, but the reason we're standing down for real is because we told y'all who they were. Y'all didn't believe us. That's the problem. So now you're dealing with the consequences of not listening to us, right? We know who we dealing with. We've been dealing with this. We know what we're dealing with. Now y'all just waking up to it. So it's not that, it's not our business. It's that y'all just realizing what we've been trying to tell y'all.
For real, for real.
At 11, we are on the ground in Haiti tonight, just hours after the Trump administration announced it's ending TPS for Haitians. Those living in the U.S. and right here in South Florida now face deportation. Good evening. I'm Lauren Pastrana. Elliot Rodriguez has the night off. We are the only South Florida news station with a reporter in Haiti right now. CBS News Miami's Tanya Francois joins us from Cap Haitian with the exclusive reaction.
Here in Cap Haitian, the news of TPS ending and the hundreds of thousands of people returning back here spread very quickly. It seems to be the only thing people have been talking about. Now, you are looking at the market area of downtown Cap Haitian from this afternoon. The streets are packed with people trying to shop and go about their day. Already moving through traffic was very difficult. The roads at times heavily congested. The people who live here say they've seen the population sharply increase because of people escaping gang violence in Port-au-Prince. Now, the thought of even more people coming here has one Haitian man very worried.
We got to deal with that gang situation and, humanitarian situation. All those people need food and stuff like that. We don't have that. We don't have health care, all that. When we're going to receive all those people, that's going to be a real problem, I can tell you.
There's already housing problems here right now. And if you saw downtown Cap, there's nothing but trash. I didn't even know I was in downtown Cap. Till I asked him, I'm like, where are we at? I'm thinking of the deepest, darkest ghetto.
That woman is visiting here from Los Angeles. She says it's her second time and things have not improved. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem in a statement said the decision to cancel TPS was to make sure it remains temporary. And she says the situation in Haiti has improved. She adds allowing Haitians to stay is contrary to the national interests of the United States. Meanwhile, the 2 flights leaving Miami today were full, some with passengers moving back here to Haiti permanently. Now, the TPS designation ends on August 3rd. The termination will be on September 2nd. Barring any court delays, it's on that day the status of hundreds of thousands of people who currently call the United States home will be considered illegal. In Cap Haitian, Haiti tonight, Tanya Francois, CBS News, Miami.
So y'all do understand that we look like them, right? Y'all do understand that just like they grabbed some of the U.S. citizens who were Mexicans, but they were citizens of the United States, then they have to prove that they are citizens. And then a lot of times ICE would say, hey, you're not a citizen. These are fake documents. This is a fake birth certificate. This is the fake passport. And then you got to prove it. And you in there for like 3 to 4, 10 months or whatever it is. You don't know. Right. So now what you think gonna happen now in August when the TPS runs out? And they're gonna start rounding up all the Haitians. The Haitians apparently gonna fight back, right? Which, I get it. But understand that they're gonna be pulling some of us in too. And that I'm gonna tell you, that's not gonna go well. Because we believe we have the rights of being a citizen of the United States with the rights to the Constitution and the protection thereof. We were brainwashed with that belief system. It ain't gonna be nice. As that brother I showed earlier who told you to lock and load, that's gonna happen, and that's why they had that movie called Civil War. There's no avoiding it, and they know that. They ran the scenarios, right? They ran it. Minister Tate.
So, yeah, Minister Yacoba, I don't know if you have that video, but in one of these videos Minister Yacoba sent, the police actually cut the guy's driver's license and passport, social security card. That's things he had as evidence that he's a citizen, right? They cut it. So I'm like, okay, it's one thing for you to accuse me of this being fake, but now that you destroyed it, I can't prove that it's not fake. Right. So you think they really care whether or not you're a citizen or not, if they're going to cut your driver's license, your social security card, maybe even your passport and call it fake? Now you can't prove it's not fake. So now you got to take the ride anyway. Come on.
And the ones that's going to be in more danger is people like me, Minister Tayu, Brother Karras, right? Texas, Louisiana, Florida. It's going to be rough. And if we end up out in the wilderness, you do know what the wilderness experience was like in the Bible, right? How come we don't have no water? How come we don't have no meat? We had it better in Egypt. That's what we're going to be saying. Some of y'all, not me. like Minister tell you, say, I'm passing that test.
I think that one's only 3.5 years, not 40. Thank the Most
yeah.
High.
Yeah, it's 3.5. So don't expect it that even when we leave, that it's not going to be trials and tribulations, because it is. There's going to be trials and tribulations, fam. You got to prepare your minds for it. I know people not telling you that, right? People want you to live in the illusion that everything is normal, that we're protected by the Constitution and that we have rights. Y'all don't understand. We don't have no more rights. They're gone. They're not coming back. I just don't understand how people don't understand this. But let's continue.
Video on the 11th of May 2025. The video is now getting a heavy rotation, more so than ever before it was posted. When I posted the video, it went viral immediately because it's a fact. This comment says, I work at Dulles Airport, which Dulles Airport is in Virginia. And when I tell you thousands, I've seen people leaving America for the past 2 weeks, I was like, what is this, an exodus? Yes, it is an exodus. A lot of people are conscious and aware of public and current affairs, what's going on in the United States, have decided for their own safety, for the safety and well-being of their family and their mental health, it's best to leave the United States. Okay, and of course, if you look at the Project 2025, that's their ultimate goal, to push people outside of the United States. They're pushing immigrants, Black and brown people. But what's also going on is that a lot of Americans born in the US are also leaving the United States because they do not feel safe and they do not feel like the US government is working within their best interest at this point in time. Now, a good way of finding out more information about people leaving is what you'll notice is a lot of abandoned cars at airports, okay, or just sitting on the side of the road or just left in parking lots. So what I do is I speak to tow truck drivers. If you know any tow truck drivers, you could speak to some of those guys and they'll tell you that you're just picking up cars left, right, and center all over the United States. Now, the hidden information, there's a lot of other data that you could use, right? Like what you won't find this information so easy. A lot of apartments are now being left abandoned. Abandoned apartments, homes are being left abandoned, and people are just going where they can find better living and a more safe environment to raise their families, so forth and so forth. And if you look at the US today, it is nothing that it was advertised as being a first world country. The US today is not a first world country, in my opinion. I would not even consider it a fourth world country, much more a second world or a third world country. It's way below a third world country, okay? And the reason is, look at what's happening. They're locking up people in concentration camps until death occurs, okay? There are people who are dying in these facilities, okay? They're asking for help. They don't have no medical care, hardly any medical care at a lot of these facilities. They lock people in these facilities for months, days, and weeks. A lot of them are dying. Okay, there's mass protests taking place all over the United States every single day for the last 6 months. And that ties into what Michelle Obama stated, that within 6 months, this administration will destroy the entire United States and tank the economy. Now you've seen where they have this big, beautiful bill that will be signed into law, supposedly today, July 4, 2025. And when that take effect, more people will leave. Because the fact of life is that a lot of people are getting laid off. A lot of people are quitting their jobs. The jobs aren't paying much. So the crash of the whole thing, and the most important resource is the human resource, which is leaving. So with that, you'll have a big gap of companies collapsing because they cannot find adequate or sustainable labor to keep their companies going, which will lower production. On top of that, you got to add into that the tariffs that they enacted, which crippled some business who will not resurrect to this day, right? So I expect the current climate, and they're ramping up ICE agents, because in the big beautiful bill, there are more funding to expand ICE to become a bigger agent with more personnel, this, that. So of course, they'll probably be terrorizing people all over the streets more. There's no way the United States can be a first world country currently with what's going on. It's impossible. There's no first world country in this world that just chase people down and beat them on camera in broad daylight. Okay, a lot of times they're injured, some die, whatever the case is. Okay, and building camps in the middle of a deserted place like Alligator Alcatraz down there in Florida, where they're building this facility. Okay, so if you look at these factors, no first world country do these type of things. So today, the word first world country does not apply to the United States. Okay, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many other people, because the human suffering and cruelty that's happening in real time is very existence, and it's spreading wider and wider. So the level of hatred towards people of color, brown people, so forth and so forth increase. So will you see more people exit the United States. And some of these people are just mostly concerned about their personal safety, their assets, their property, which brings up another story. A lot of people are liquidating their assets, right? Selling everything they have. Some people don't even care to sell stuff. They just get on a plane, leave their cars at the airport, and just get out of here. So this is happening wide. And the funny thing about it is, a lot of people who will be left in America, right? They don't want to do the jobs that they fought people away from. Okay, they don't want to do these jobs, and a lot of these jobs don't pay shit. You understand? So there you go. So I expect this video that this comment came from, it's just gonna keep getting views higher and higher and higher and higher. Because you see, the thing is this: nothing can beat facts. That's just the bottom line of the bottom line. A fact is a fact, whether you like it or whether I like it. That's just it. You understand what I'm saying? So stay safe out there, and the people who are traveling and planning to leave or on their way leaving or contemplating leaving, be safe and catch you in the next video.
All right, so I'm gonna read this scripture one more time, and I want Minister Teo to talk about what some Europeans are saying about us and how they're concerned about us. Jeremiah 50:16, cut off from Babylon the sword, right? I told y'all, the Mexicans, right? The Native Americans, those picking your food, your vegetable. Cut off from Babylon the sword and the reaper with his sickle at harvest because of the sword of the oppressor. Let everyone return to their own people. Let everyone flee to their own land. Is that not what this guy just told us? Is that not, yes or no? Is that not what he just told us? Hashtag ain't no 400-year prophecy. I don't want to hear nothing no more about flee doctrine. He just told you people fleeing. Minister tell you.
Yeah. So, yeah, my daughter has some European friends, and they're concerned, and they like, what can we do to help y'all? Because it's getting crazy over there. So I think they see it more than our own people, which is, I find interesting.
So, everyone sees what's happening. It's just those living in here like the frog in the pot. Ooh, this some warm water. Ooh, yeah, turn that up a little bit. Ooh, that's some warm water. Until it starts boiling and too late to get out. That's where we're at. I hope y'all realize it.
The U.S. is currently on high alert. They just arrested 17 Iranians that are planning an attack here on U.S. soil. Also understand that this peace treaty does not apply to these sleeper cells and terrorist groups that are already here on U.S. soil, all right? It doesn't apply to them. So you have these organizations like ISIS and Al-Qaeda that are planning these attacks already. This week, that group that was arrested was supposedly planning an attack for this week. And fortunately, they were caught, all right? But you have to understand there's way more sleeper cells in the States than just these 17 people that were arrested. The New York Post stated that 700 was what was caught coming across the border. That's 700 that was accounted for. What about the ones that weren't accounted for? We already know that the FBI already said that there's 1,000 sleeper cells already that they know of. So just know that as things intensify in the Middle East, things are going to intensify here as well. So just stay safe.
So a lot of prophetic things are happening. So now we got to worry about sleeper cells, but y'all told me y'all not going to flee. Okay, I get it, right?
Well, I'm wondering, Minister Yacoba, will we ever hear the evidence as to why these guys are labeled as sleeper cells? Because they may not be, right? We don't know. They're not going to give us any proof. So, I mean, to promote your agenda, you could label anybody a sleeper cell just because you're in hostilities with their people. So you gotta have an open mind and have question everything.
Well, it's sort of like what happened during World War II with the Japanese, right? A lot of the Japanese citizens here were put in concentration camps because they were at war with Japan, right? But here's the thing. We know for a fact there are sleeper cells here, right? They may not even be Iranian. They could be the Iraqi. They could be Al-Qaeda. They could be anything, right? Which we know who's behind those, right? So regardless, it is the message that they want to tell us. Why? Because as Albert Pike said, he's going to put the nihilists against the atheists, right? They're going to cause a social cataclysm, right? So obviously, even if these guys are not necessarily sleeper cells, there's probably quote unquote sleeper cells here managed by a certain 3-letter agency.
Well, see, that's the thing. I think there's a difference between, sleeper cells and 3-letter agency controlled opposition, right? And I suspect most of that stuff is 3-letter agency controlled, right? Just to push the false flag. That's my position. But I also like to say, some people say, well, I can't leave. Well, Minister Yacoba been telling y'all for years, it's more about your mindset than your ability, right? And you do the little you can. You prepare your mind, your spirit for what the Most High is going to do. And when the Most High say, let's go, you go. But if you ain't ready, then you ain't going to even acknowledge that he sent an angel or whatever sign he sent. Y'all going to be like, I ain't going. I can't go. But yet the same thing, you like when Katrina came, if I said that, I would have drowned. If the neighborhood on fire, I'm not going to say I can't go. Oh, well, I'm going to wait on the Most High because I can't go. I ain't got nowhere to go, but my neighborhood burning down. Come on, now let's think about that.
Yeah, as Big Red said, there will be an opportunity to leave and folks going to choose to stay. Exactly. That's their business. Like I said, I've done my job, right? I've warned y'all for years. At this point, that's between you and the Most High at this point, right?
Yeah, you should be looking for that opportunity. That's what you should be looking for. It ain't about what you got. It's about what he going to do for you and whether or not you ready for it.
That's it. Because as Minister Teyu said, during the Katrina situation, he lost everything. But do you know the Most High took care of him and he was doing great that whole time? I mean, the Most High took care of everything.
To breaking news, there has just been a major global IT outage. And as we speak, planes around the world are being grounded. Some people cannot get into their bank accounts. Computers have been shutting down and are showing blue screens like this. People say that they cannot pay for their groceries at the store. Emergency services have been disrupted. And this is happening all around the world. Now, we have very little information as to what's caused this outage specifically, but there were first reports in Australia, and then it spread to the US, and now it's global. This shit has gone international. Japan, India, UK, Europe, Middle East, South Africa? I don't know. Is there anything happening there? I'm going to be making a more detailed video about all of this immediately after this, but reports say that the outage is related to an issue at the global cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike. They described it as a large-scale technical outage but said that there was no information immediately to suggest that it was a major cyber attack. I guess we'll see about.
So last week, my internet was off for like 5 days. That's why y'all didn't hear from me for a while, because my internet was down. And, it's probably related to this whole global IT outage situation, right? Yeah, this video from last week is from last week, I believe. So, we'll see what happens.
Is a life-threatening contagion that has resurfaced in the last 72 hours after having been dormant for over 20 years. It is spelled out NIPAH. Feel free to sound it out. It was first identified in 1998 in Malaysia when it claimed the lives of over 100 people. Now, all of a sudden, after having been dormant, it is back. 2 new cases have come about, causing Southeast Asia to sound alerts. It happened in Southeast India and Kerala, and people are absolutely concerned because it's giving 2019-2020 pandemic vibes. It is an actual infection that is transmitted via fruit bats to humans, and they say there's no cure, no vaccine, and the unaliving rate is between 40 to 75%, meaning 4 to 7 people who contract this out of 10, unfortunately, don't survive it. And there's a major national institute that after the 2020 demi happened, they came out with a hypothetical kind of study to see what would happen in the next demi and how would they go about it. And do y'all know what contagion, what pathogen they use to do this hypothetical study? They used the NIPAH virus, and they said that it would happen between 2025 to 2028 in this specific study. Specifically, I believe they said from July of 25 to December of 28. What month are we in, and what cases are starting to pop up? Now, I'm not sure if y'all believe in coincidences, because like I said, this is all hypothetical, but it's definitely worth looking into, because who's to say what's to come? With everything else going on in our world, what's the possibility that they wouldn't just throw a demi in there? I don't know what's what, but I implore you to do your research. Per usual, this is all alleged. I can't confirm or deny it. Like I said, their study was completely hypothetical. I believe they called it the SPARS pandemic. So go ahead and look into that book and look into the NIPAH situation as well. Come back, share your thoughts, save this video. If you already know what I'm talking about, let me know what you think in the comments. Whatever else comes out, I'll be back with more updates.
So, as was stated, we knew that these things were coming, that there was going to be an exercise of some sort. But according to her, apparently there's a real situation happening, right? And that's what happened 5 years ago, right? It was event, 201. And so, I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that everything that the scriptures have spoken of is here. I mean, the only thing that's really not here yet is the Antichrist and our exit, right? Everything else is here. What's your thoughts on that, Minister Taylor?
I would say the only thing that's not here is our exit. That's how I see it. And that's what we're waiting on. At this point in time, family, you just have to settle in your heart how you're going to respond to any scenario. I mean, like this so-called new lollipop that may occur. I mean, to me, that's irrelevant. Either they pull the trigger on that or not. But I know what I'm not going to do. So it's irrelevant to me. Now, if I get it, but I know where it's coming from. It ain't some organic thing that's going to happen naturally, right? I already know who's doing it. So we'll see. I trust the Most High. That's where we at. The Most High say trust him. We better do it.
So the time frame that we're in is, as I said, and it's always been a time of repentance, but there's no more warnings. I don't think you're going to get too many more warnings. I mean, really, this, probably a last warning. It's just moving too fast. And I think, July 26th, when the big, beautiful bill kicks in, expect to see a whole bunch of foolishness happen and a whole bunch of constitutional issues that's going to happen that you're not going to be able to fight because they didn't say he could pretty much do what he wants, right? And we're going to see social cataclysm, chaos, disturbance, economic collapse, food infrastructure is going to collapse, you know, all of that, right? And, you know, I know y'all don't want to hear this. Y'all want to hear the good stuff, but it is what it is, right? That's why I've said, you know, however the Most High leads you, prepare. And as my brother said, have a mind of leaving Babylon, right? Have a mind of fleeing, have a mind of preparation, have a mind of this not my home anymore. I'm not comfortable here anymore. Because guess what? This not your home anymore. If you haven't realized it, they've made it uncomfortable for everybody, which is why you've heard that people are fleeing. People are literally fleeing. And this ministry has been teaching this for years and got a lot of heat for it. But now it's here. So I would say at the very least, have your mind out of Babylon. Have your mind far removed from buying a house and buying a new car. And those days are over. I know you don't believe me because it hasn't hit you yet. Do you know how many of these immigrants have lost their homes? I showed you a video in one of my other videos about, you know, this particular immigrant who they grabbed and sent him back to Mexico. He signed over his house and his car to a brother. This is where we're at. So why are you going to buy a new house? And why are you going to buy a new car? And why are you going to do all these things? I'm telling you, look, like I said, don't believe me. Seek the Most High. You don't have to believe me. I'm telling you, the America you knew is no more. The Constitution that you thought protected you is no more. You are in a autocrat system. You're run by a dictator. And Congress is not going to help you. The Democrats not going to help you. The Republicans not going to help you. Your mama not going to help you. There's only one person who can help you, and that's the Most High. Have a mind of preparation and a mind of exit. Minister Tate.
Yeah, so many of us are suffering from normalcy bias. And we think because things have always been a certain way, it's going to remain that way. But in reality, that's an American privilege. Because in other nations, our nation has disturbed their peace at some point in their lives. Right? So, you know, a lot of other nations, just say, for example, Iran, for a while, they were normal. Things were fine. Things were okay. But the Ish people decided that they're a threat because they want to be independent from the system. So they make those people, the Iranians, they're the problem, even though the Iranians aren't the ones who threw the rock first. Who threw the rock first, right? So this is what we've been dealing with, is the bully is the one that throws the rock and hides his hand. And then all of a sudden the victim is the bad guy. And that's the scenario that's always played. That's the scenario that's going down now. That's the scenario that's going to be used against us. We're going to be labeled the bad guys. And we're not doing nothing but trying to stay out of the way. I know a lot of us trying to keep our head down and head low and hope this thing blows over. But we're way past that now. You best trust the Most High.
One thing I've realized is you cannot hide from the bully. You have to confront the bully. You might lose, right? But guess what? You have the Most High on your side. The Bible says you're going to be like David, right? You're going to be a giant slayer, right? That's what we have to do. We have to understand that we are called to be his battle axe and his weapon of war. And with us, he's going to destroy the nations. We got to walk in that, right? We got to walk in the authority that we are the children of the Most High. We got to walk in the authority that we are the covenant keepers. We got to walk in the authority that he did make promises to us to deliver us and protect us and avenge us. He said, vengeance is mine, I will repay. But he also said he's going to use you to do it, because you his battle axe and weapons of war. See, they don't teach you that in Christianity, because Christianity wants you to always fold over. Lay down and let him kick you. No, I'm not laying down. As the scripture says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. My God is able to deliver me, but if he don't, that's where we're at, right? Ain't nobody going to tell you this. Why? Because everybody want you to have normalcy bias. Why? So you could go to their conferences. So you could buy their stuff, right? So you can help them build their ministries, right? That's why you have all of these pastors coming out now talking against Hebrew Israelites. God ain't black. Jesus ain't black. Yes, he is. And we can prove it from the scriptures. We can prove it from history. We can prove who we are. But guess what? Anybody who says otherwise did not do the research. Neither do they want to do the research. Why? Because they're comfortable in the lie. They are comfortable in the lie. And guess what? Most people are comfortable in the lie. And guess what's going to happen to them? The blind lead the blind, and they both fall into the pit. That's where we're at. I'd have to say, family, just my opinion, not much time left. I'm curious how many gonna make it past 2026. I'm curious. I'm telling you, that's how bad it is, at least the way I see it. So we'll find out. Like I told you, time proves all things, right? All the people that keep, well, Yacoba, how come you still here? Yacoba, you said this. Yacoba, you said that. And you know what? What gets me is they never watch my videos to see what I really truly said. Have you noticed that? They hit at me, but they never watch my videos to see everything I said. So don't come to me with that foolishness, because I will block you in an instant. Keep it to yourself. Any final comments, Minister, to you?
No, pray on it, family, and be prepared, be in prayer. Peace and blessings.
All right, fam. So if you want to support us, you can by becoming a patron. You can also go to tailministries.com, click on the donations tab. There's other options to give. You also can give Cash App, $TOTW7101, $TOTW7101. Love y'all, family. Looking forward to seeing y'all in the wilderness. I pray we make it into the wilderness, because it is going to be a remnant according to the scriptures. So seek the Most High, pray and fast, and pray for this ministry, and pray for the whole house of Yasharal or Ezra Alawi. Peace out. Well, family, the wait is over. The moment has arrived where truth emerges triumphant from the shadows of history. Introducing the true Jerusalem, the lost kingdoms of the Israelites, the groundbreaking work by me, Yacoba Evale, a journey into the past that reshapes the future. I cut through centuries of misconceptions with piercing clarity. This book delivers a compelling case packed with evidence that commands attention and gonna get some respect. Come with me for a second, family, and discover how these thrilling civilizations flourished, protected by towering highlands and sustained by advanced engineering. Some have asked, where is Jerusalem? Is it the land in the Middle East? I say no. It is in the highlands of Ethiopia. With hours of groundbreaking research, this book brings in a new revelation, and it will transform your understanding of African history and its connections to the ancient world. It's going to remove from your mind the conditioning by the Romans of what has really happened to our past. Come with me, family, to the Ethiopian highlands and find out why this is our land, why things have been hidden and obfuscated for centuries. We are royalty, children of the Most High. What kind of land do you expect us to have? Dried up dirt in the Middle East, or land flowing with rivers a land full of beautiful animals flowing with milk and honey. Don't miss out on this monumental unveiling. Grab your copy today and stand on the side of truth. Visit Amazon.com or www.tailministries.com to purchase your book and join Jacoby Vale's teachings on Tail Ministries. Family, your journey to hidden history has now begun. So family, get your copy of True Jerusalem, The Lost Kingdoms of the Israelites today. Journey to the heart of Africa, where history and legend converge to reveal the forgotten kingdoms of the Israelites and the true location of Jerusalem.